The narrative centers on a young man named Kelvin, who is reborn by the supreme being of reincarnation into a fantastical realm. Kelvin lost his life as a result of a mistake committed by the ruling supreme being. He sought assistance from the supreme being of reincarnation to make amends for his error. Kelvin will return to the realm of imagination, but he will not remember anything from his past life. Kelvin has the option to select several skill sets that will benefit him in his new life. He seemed to have fallen in love with the ultimate reincarnation being throughout his incarnation, but when he wakes up, he won't remember any of it. It is in the midst of the woods when Kelvin awakens. He has to hit start to proceed when the status screen shows up in front of him. Kelvin is talking to a voice, and it turns out that the voice is Melfina, the supreme deity of creation. When Kelvin was allowed to choose a desire, he had asked Melfina to be his servant. Upon examining his status, Kelvin discerns that he is a summoner. Kelvin is instructed to go to Parth, the closest town, by Melfina, to sign up as an explorer. Until he gains the strength to call Melfina, Kelvin can only hear her voice for the time being. Melfina made the decision to take a vacation from her job and accepted to serve him. In the meanwhile, she is employed by her helpers. Entering a guild, Kelvin signs up to become an explorer. Melfina advises him against registering as a summoner due to the rarity of S-rank summoners. Seldom is there one for each country. When the people of the country learn that he is a summoner in S-rank, to be exact, they will become interested in him. Then Kelvin logs on as a green wizard. The F-rank card is handed to him. He is told that he can handle chores that are one level above his by the receptionist Angie. But even if he succeeds in doing the work, he won't get bonus points. In addition, there are penalties for not finishing the chores. Gaining promotion to the next rank requires completing 10 assignments in a row. He has to defeat at least 3 blue slimes for his first mission. Melfina informs Kelvin that he may make a deal with one of the slimes when he discovers the slimes. But the slime must get weaker and accept the terms of the bargain. Kelvin pursues a slime, but it wasn't as simple as he had anticipated. Until Kelvin succeeds in knocking it to the ground, the slimes continue to play with him. Then he extends his hand and makes a deal with the blue slime. The slime disappears inside Kevin's mind, where it remains available for summoning whenever he pleases. The slime is called Clotho by Kelvin. In his awareness, there is also networking via which his subordinates may converse. Melfina is speaking with Kelvin in this manner, and Clotho may now speak with the two as well. Since Kelvin and Clotho made a pact, Clotho's level has grown, and he is now more powerful. After that, Kelvin tries his hand at summoning and calls forth Clotho. He then gives Clotho a mission to assist him in eliminating 3 blue slimes. In order for Kelvin to utilize the slimes as evidence, Clotho absorbs them, but desynthesizes their cores. Kelvin is compensated for his work and reports back to the guild after finishing his assignment. Ange points Kelvin in the direction of the location of an inn where he can stay. He crosses an alley where several slavers are selling their captives while making his way to the inn. An elf girl is among the slaves. Nevertheless, Kelvin lacks the funds to purchase her and departs. Kelvin travels to the Spirit Song Hotel. Claire, the receptionist, meets with him. Claire makes him dinner and leads him to his room. This denotes his voyage and exploration of a new realm. After finishing the necessary amount of missions, Kelvin is soon promoted to E rank. Ange says that because Kelvin is going to be taking on increasingly challenging assignments, he should create his own party. With Clotho around, Kelvin tells himself he doesn't need a party. Being rather powerful for a novice, Ange asks Kelvin if he's from another planet, but Kelvin would rather not respond. An adventurer named Cashel walks in while Kelvin is discussing what he should do next. He advises Kelvin to defeat the Shadow Knight. Cashel tells Kelvin he's an adventurer of D rank. Unbeknownst to Kelvin, this is Cashel's standard maneuver to confront novices. He deceives people into thinking he is weak before degrading them. Because Cashel is a B rank adventurer, he is the fear of all the guild members. Cashel invites Kelvin to accompany his group as they pursue the Black Ghost Knight, and tries to argue that Kelvin won't be able to complete the mission, but Cashel silences her. After that, Kelvin informs Cashel that he has no interest in helping him in the fight against the Black Ghost Knight. When Kelvin checks Cashel's numbers with his evaluation eye, he discovers that he has been lying about his rank and stat. In addition, Cashel has a concerning title, and Kelvin knows he won't back down. Then Kelvin strikes a deal with Cashel. He'll be going up against Cashel and his group. The competition winner is whomever takes down the knight first. With confidence, Cashel takes up the challenge right away. Cashel catches up with Gimel, a member of his party. He informs Cashel that Kelvin's statistics are still hidden from him, and that his evaluation eye is a C rating. Gimel predicts that Kevin's cover will be at least a C rank. Raj, another party member who seems to be the group's muscle, is eager to smash Kelvin. When Cashel and his group eventually get at the old castle, they discover that every undead creature has already been vanquished. Only the Black Ghost Knight remains. After revealing who he is, Kelvin claims to have been waiting for them. Kelvin admits that he is aware of their schemes to damage him. It seems that rather than merely doing missions, they have started murdering other explorers in order to gain more rank points for themselves. Raj chases after Kelvin first, but he gets caught in a mud vine. Gimel attempts to get away, but a Clotho stops him. It turns out that throughout all of their activities, Clotho has transformed into a slime gluttonia. He is now considerably more powerful with a title of Devourer. He may, however, easily return to his normal size. They overcome Cashel and his group together. Kelvin determines it's time for the big reveal after taking down the trio of dishonest explorers. The knight is waiting for him when he opens the door. Reaching out to the knight, Kelvin informs him of his intention to include him in his group. The knight is taken aback and remarks that most people simply approach him brandishing swords. The two settle in for a discussion. He admits to Kelvin that he was once human, but he isn't yet ready to explain to him why he became a monster. The knight claims he will never have a nation or monarch to fight for. He discloses that his name is Gerard, but before Kelvin and he can make a deal, Kelvin must overcome him. The two engage in combat, and it is during this conflict that Gerard discloses the reason he has been surviving. He had previously served as the knight's leader in his tiny nation of Alcarl. One day Jedora, a western continental elf, arrived with a suggestion for the monarch. Jedora approached the king on behalf of the Lysia Empire, requesting that he serve as their agent. He desires the Holy Empire of Deramis to be destroyed by the monarch and army. But the monarch declined, and the people of Alacalar perished within a few days. In order to continue exacting revenge for the deaths of his family and his nation, Gerard refused to die. When Kelvin learns of this, he makes every effort to vanquish Gerard. Gerard signs a contract with Kelvin after admitting defeat. Soon later, as evidence, Kelvin brings a piece of the knight's armor back to the guild. Additionally, he delivers Cashel and his group for punishment. Kelvin now employs 3 entities as a result of this. Gerard, Clotho, and Melfina are the 3 entities. Melfina is a superior entity, hence her level is incalculable. Kelvin's meeting with Leo, the guildmaster, comes next. Because to Leo's a rank appraising eye, Kelvin finds it challenging to conceal his numbers. Leo is able to look right through Kelvin and swiftly determines that he is not from this world. Gerard tells Kelvin to relax, but he wants to get defensive about who he is. He needs pals with whom he can confide his secrets, because he cannot keep his stats a secret forever. Kelvin responds in the affirmative when Leo asks if he is a summoner. Kelvin goes on to question why. Given that Leo's appraiser I can see what Cashel and his group are up to, he didn't stop them. Leo expresses regret and explains that Cashel is a nobleman from the warlike country of Trion. To prevent an international issue, he wanted documentation that linked him directly to Cashel. Leo admits that he is actually Kelvin's buddy rather than his antagonist. He has really encountered other people who are extraterrestrial in nature. The heroes of the Holy Empire of Daramis, according to Leo, come from another planet. Melfina attests to this, claiming that it was her who brought them back to life. After hearing the Supreme Being's prophecy, the Daramis priestess called for the heroes. It appears like the Demon King's resuscitation is about to occur. This explains why monster activity has increased in all parts of the continent. Leo admits to Kelvin that he knows why he had been keeping his summoner status a secret. He wants to stay out of political controversies. Leo promises him that he will ensure Kelvin's release and that no one finds out about his position if he is ready to assist. Leo is eager to assist Kelvin in reaching his goal of becoming a S-rank adventurer. Not too long later, Kelvin receives a promotion to B-level. Claire makes a delicious meal for Kelvin as a promotion celebration. Later, Melfina informs Kelvin that a summoning ceremony was carried out by the priestess of the Holy Empire of Daramis. Melfina then locates a few attractive, intelligent lads and girls to resurrect. Melfina feels the heroes will now be playing at a respectable level. Kelvin gets up to go shopping from his room. He discloses his scheme to track down and purchase the elf slave girl. She will be trained by Kelvin and welcomed into the group. Kelvin gives the master his money when he arrives. It is revealed to him that the female is cursed to be immune to physical contact. The girl gives Kelvin credit for buying her and discloses that Ethel is her name. The curse is then broken by Kelvin using his magic, and Ethel is at last able to touch someone without making them catch fire. Claire tends to Ethel when Kelvin returns her to the inn. Ethel seems youthful and gorgeous once she's finished bathing and cleaning her. Ethel swears to serve Kelvin to the best of her abilities. Even though Kelvin knows Claire manufactured Ethel's maid attire, it still looks beautiful on her. The two then have a dinner that Claire made. Ethel wept while she ate because the food was so good. Kelvin then allows Ethel to select her own abilities. When it came time for Kelvin to go to bed, Claire informs him that there isn't a room available once again. Ethel and Kelvin are made to share a bed. Ethel then spent her points on sewing, Turing, and archery. Kelvin also learned how to be a blacksmith. Ethel has taken to creating her own outfits, as seen by the present maid attire she is sporting. Her unique method came from the combination of her high-level archery talent, red magic, and fire dragon king's grace. After completing one more mission, Kelvin will be qualified for a rank shortly after that. In a short while, Ethel is also getting promoted to B-level. Kelvin reluctantly accepts when Ethel asks him to go out with her, the next day after they deliver their report at the guild. Melfina has departed to take care of official duties in the interim. Melfina will not be accessible for the foreseeable future. Kelvin meets with Ethel and Ange the next day. Ethel makes sure she looks stunning for the occasion that day. Tabra, the third prince of Trion, confronts them as they are enjoying themselves. The girls are so cute that he insists they accompany him. The guards attempt to approach the females, but Kelvin effortlessly knocks them unconscious. Then, using his power, he subdues Tabra and forces him to confess to his crime. Tabra tells us that he traveled to Tarth because he had heard of a strong adventurer who had settled there. In order to become more powerful, he intends to turn the adventurer into his servant. After claiming to be the adventurer he is searching for, Kelvin knocks him unconscious. As everything has been happening, the public have been cheering Kelvin on for his bravery. In another scene, Melfina makes herself known to Colette, the priestess of Daramis. Colette responds that the heroes are doing well when she inquires about them. Colette should send the heroes to the western continent, Melfina advises, since she has detected an evil presence there. Before vanishing once more, Melfina cautions Colette to keep the heroes away from Parth. Efil expresses gratitude to Kelvin later that evening for rescuing her from the Crooked Prince. She expresses gratitude to Kelvin for setting her free and letting her experience what it's like to touch someone. If she's attractive, Kelvin responds to Efil's question. Thinking to himself, Kelvin decides he must purchase a home as soon as possible in order to keep Efil out of his room. When Melfina returns the next day, he presents the party with the hero's stats. Kelvin is unable to integrate Efil into his awareness, so Clotho divides himself to focus on Ethel's damage. Ethel is able to take part in the servants' network discussion in this way. Melfina wishes that the heroes will strengthen in order to face the Demon King. She notes that Kelvin and his group are becoming more powerful every day. Kelvin displays his prowess as a blacksmith and shows off the new weapons he has created. In addition, Ethel displays the armor and new gowns she fashioned for the celebration guests and herself. Kelvin receives a call to the guildmaster's office shortly after. Leo informs him that the hermit's cave contains a monster. Along with dragons and angels, Melfina claims that demons are among the strongest races. Leo begs Kelvin for assistance because they are unsure of the demon's current level of strength. Kelvin agrees to assist. When Kelvin arrives in the cave, the explorers who discovered the dungeon tell him everything there is to know. Gerard leads the way as they enter the dungeon, followed by Ethel, Kelvin, and Clotho. When they reach the inner door, Kelvin reports to his group that he detects the presence of two life forms in the space. When they walk inside the chamber, they discover a sealed demon girl. When a second demon emerges, it becomes clear that he is Victor, the archdemon. Since Victor is the archdemon by default and is a S-rank demon, Kelvin opens his lips in shock. But because he enjoys fighting, Kelvin is unmoved by this. As he realizes how strong Victor is, he is really grinning. Victor informs the group that the girl they are observing is Gustav, the Demon King's daughter. In order to prevent his adversaries from using his daughter against him, Gustav kept it a secret. Victor says that the girl's seal can only be broken by humans, but he wouldn't want that. In order to become the Demon King, he wishes to consume the girl. When Victor calls for his subordinates, combat breaks out between the two groups. With a single blow of his sword, Gerard eliminates the subordinates, while Kelvin eliminates any that he misses. Victor tries to sneak up on Kelvin with a magic smoke bomb, but Kelvin effortlessly blocks his strikes. Efil shoots Victor with her magical arrow after sneaking up on him. As Gerard approaches him, he chops off one of his arms. Victor agrees that Kelvin and his group are the second group to inflict such severe harm on him. Victor responds by using all of his magical abilities and grows even more powerful and large. Gerard is weakened as a result of his magical attacks on the group. After he knocks Gerard to the ground, he appears to be winning until Clotho launches a barrage of strikes from overhead. Kelvin and Efil now have the opportunity to deal a severe blow to Victor. After being knocked to the ground, Victor gives up the fight. Then Victor confesses that he never intended to take on the role of the king's daughter. He claims that even if Kelvin hadn't lied, he wouldn't have battled so hard. Victor explains the background of everything. He was given responsibility over Sarah, Gustav's daughter, some 100 years ago. She was essentially raised by him. Sarah felt unable to leave the large home where he was living with her. Gustav made every effort to conceal the existence of his daughter. The hero then launched an attack on Gustav one day. Victor was prepared to battle Gustav to the death. However, Gustav gave him the command to keep an eye on Sarah. The hero and other demons would pursue her if word ever got out about her presence. Gustav then encloses her in a seal that can only be broken by humans. She would be safe if someone other than the hero happened to locate her. Following Gustav's death, Sarah was sent to a far-off place, where Victor kept watch over her despite her sealed condition. Gustav dreams of the day when Sarah can live a quiet life free from threats to her safety. Victor goes on to say that he has been waiting for a peaceful period of time to break Sarah's seal. At that point, she can become the Demon King. Victor regrets that his intentions have all fallen through. He asks Kelvin for one final favor. Seeking to show Sarah the world and allow her to join his party, he asks Kelvin. Most likely, Sarah is already waking up from her sleep and would have already been listening in on their talk. Kelvin is instructed by Victor to shatter the seal so that Sarah's eyes would open. Victor declines Kelvin's offer to cure him, saying he was only ready to serve the Demon King and isn't ready to help anybody else. Victor passes away at last, having said everything he has to say. Breaking the seal, Kelvin approaches Sarah. After losing the final member of her family, Sarah sobs as she wakes up. Once fully cognizant, Sarah and Kelvin create a contract. After spending time in the cave, the group emerges back on the surface. Before he passed away, Gustav had already created Sarah a camouflaging hairband to cover off her horns. Sarah was not among the initial explorers to enter the cave, a falsehood told by Kelvin to the adventurers. They depart after presenting the adventurers with the evidence that the monster has been vanquished. Later on, Efil gives Gerard a stronger and new set of armor. Gerard is now stronger than before, and his stats have increased as well. Sarah is shown what it's like to live among people when she returns to the town after the celebration. When Kelvin rejoins the guild, he receives an official promotion to the rank. After, Ange plans a celebration to honor Kelvin's promotion. Kelvin overhears Sarah pondering out loud later that evening. She swears to see the world the way they had always intended to, and to make Victor proud. Next, Kelvin crafts Sarah a brand new set of armor named Queen's Terror. As Sarah had requested, he built the armor from Victor's armor. He also forged Gerard a new sword. Kelvin is worn out from his labors and begins to want for rice. He is yelling nonstop that he is hungry for rice. Not too long later, the group gathers their belongings and sets out to travel to a place named Torach. Kelvin is traveling to Torach with two goals in mind. Sarah has to be shown the world first. Reportedly, Torach is an oceanfront nation where a plant like rice is thought to exist. Leo had no trouble giving them permission to go to Torach. It is discovered that Melfina has once more departed for a while. Melfina has gone to modify her physical form in order to assume the appearance of one of her avatars. This will provide Kelvin with the energy needed to call her. This will also hide the fact that she is a divine entity. The group is halted by the Black Wind, a band of robbers, while traveling to Torach. The gang was supposedly vanquished by an rank adventurer from Trion, yet it appears that they are back at it. Unbeknownst to them, the gang has just met a horrific end when they attempt to loot the celebration. Sarah quickly vanquishes each and every thief once Kelvin gives her the order to deal with them. When their employer finds out what transpired, the thieves warn the group that they will face serious consequences. Kelvin expresses excitement about this and how eager he is to meet their boss. They arrive to Torach shortly after that. Torach reminds Kelvin of vintage Japan. They arrive at the guild for the area. The group meets with Mist, the guildmaster, after they turn up the thieves to the guild. Mist says that she has been informed about Kelvin by Leo. Leo really spends most of his time talking about Kelvin these days. Mist tells Kelvin that Christopher, Trison's warrior, has vanquished the Black Wind. But as it happens, he is now in charge of the operation. In an attempt to sell females as slaves, they have begun kidnapping them. Mist is being cautious because, if left unchecked, this might become a global incident. When Kelvin finds out that Christopher is at level 70, his initial joy wanes. In order for Christoph to be a formidable foe, he wishes he had more levels. Sarah notices that a party of explorers has just arrived in the town at that moment. The heroes, it turns out, have just gotten to town. Because it just makes their lives simpler, Kelvin is pleased. Miss is instructed by Kelvin to let the heroes know about Christoph. There won't be any objections if Christoph is vanquished by the heroes, who genuinely fight for justice. Kelvin and his group then locate Christoph's operational base. They overpower his goons, break through, and release the females. In their office, they discover Christoph and his generals. They are quickly defeated by Kelvin, who leaves them sprawled out on the ground. The heroes reach the hideaway later. When they meet the girls, they are informed that the adventurers who saved them have gone to battle the bandits in the other chamber. The females implore the heroes to accompany the adventurers in their fight against the robbers. When the heroes enter the chamber, Christoph and his men are unconscious on the ground. Bewildered, The heroes assume that the folks laying on the ground are the intrepid travelers in need of assistance. When they arrive, Kelvin and his group are grinning. The group of robbers is mistaken for Kelvin and his group by the heroes. The heroes are unaware that Kelvin has previously arranged this. His entire plan has been to deceive the heroes into fighting him. The heroes give a brief introduction. Toya Kanzaki, their commander, Setsuna Shiga, his sidekick, Nana Mizuoka, and Miyabi Kiromiya, the last. Kelvin and his group will face justice, the heroes swear. The heroes are then informed by Kelvin that he is prepared to battle the four of them by himself. The loser will comply with the winner's wishes. The heroes argue among themselves over whether or not to take on Kelvin, who is obviously soaking up all the attention. As Kelvin prepares to battle the heroes, the rest of his entourage takes a seat. At last, the heroes decide to take on Kelvin. Kelvin announces to his companions that he will use his new weapon. One of the weapons used to combat the heroes is the Skill Eater. The heroes charge at Kelvin, but he easily deflects every one of their blows. The fact that Kelvin is competing against Toya with only his bare hands, and that Toya has S-rank swordsmanship astounds Toya's friends. Then it is revealed that before to the battle, Sarah had taught Kelvin her martial arts techniques. Setsuna discovers that Toya is prepared to fight to the end as the battle rages on. She holds him to account, reminding him of the day Melfina dragged them out of the classroom and into the realm of imagination. Setsuna informs Toya that cooperation is their only chance to beat Kelvin. The group rallies behind this newfound drive and launches an assault against Kelvin. To keep Kelvin under control, they use their strongest spells. To divert their attention, Kelvin calls forth a golem while he prepares a fresh spell. When Kelvin devises a new spell to defeat the hero's spells, both sides are taken aback. Once more, they attempt to use various spells to strike him, but he is well beyond their level and effortlessly displaces anything they do. While fighting Kelvin, Toya bemoans the fact that, given his might, he ought to use his abilities for the benefit of society. After taking him out, Kelvin warns him not to attempt to impose his own beliefs and values on him. The heroes discover that Kelvin is not their adversary when they awaken later. It was he, the intrepid one, who drove the bandits out. He was only combating them in order to expose their flaws and provide improvement techniques. As Toya discovers this, she gives Kelvin a bow. From then on, he designates Kelvin as his instructor. When everything has calmed down, the girls are all released and Kristoff and his group are taken into custody. Kelvin leads the heroes to a training cave. In the cave, a S-tier dungeon boss appeared, and Kelvin had to take it down. Before Toya and his group can take on S-level monsters, Kelvin informs them that they still have a lot of work ahead of them. A few days later, Toya gets ready to depart the town with his group. We appreciate all of Kelvin's assistance. As a farewell, Kelvin presents them pendants. Toya vows to be more powerful when they next cross paths. Following their departure, Kelvin discloses that the heroes' necklaces are actually stat enhancers. They will develop faster and stronger as a result of this. Then he asks Gerard if Lysia is west over the water, and he replies that she is. Remember that Lysia was the nation who demolished Gerard's house. This is something Kelvin remembers, and he intends to make up for their transgressions. Before facing Lysia, Kelvin wants to grow better and stronger. A few minutes later, Kelvin receives word that the monarch of the nation wishes to meet them. When Kelvin arrives to the palace, he observes that it is constructed similarly to a traditional Japanese palace. He is told by Gerard that there are rumors that the nation's first ruler originated in another planet. As they enter the palace, Kelvin notices that the surroundings are similar to those of Japanese palaces. Tsubaki Fujiwara, the current monarch of Torach, greets them. Kelvin remarks to himself that her name is unquestionably Japanese as soon as he hears it. This confirms his theory that a Japanese person must have been the nation's first ruler. They must be the sole nation with rice for this reason as well. Tsubaki claims that if Trion hadn't been involved, they would have celebrated the party's good deed. They're attempting to hide things from the public to avoid raising suspicions. Kelvin is asked to mention anything by Tsubaki. According to Kelvin, he wants rice. Tsubaki is taken aback. She claims Kelvin had the option to choose status, money, or a title, but he went for rice. According to Kelvin, he has no desire for something that might bind him down. Because he is an explorer, he loves to be free. Tsubaki vows to give Kelvin as much rice as he desires as a result. If he runs out of rice, she will also send some to him. Rice is brought to Kelvin and his group, and Kelvin eats a lot of it because he loves it so much. Ethel is occupied with teaching Tsubaki the Japanese cuisine throughout the feast. This will come in handy when she's cooking Japanese food later on. Later, when Ethel makes her first Japanese food, Kelvin gives her acclaim for doing it correctly. Efil can cook at S rank after all. While Tsubaki is in favor of Kelvin and his group staying in Torach, he also thinks they must go for Parth as soon as possible. Tsubaki even makes an attempt to get Kelvin to wed her, but he graciously rejects. Kelvin is informed by Tsubaki that she has a unique method of sending them back home. She discloses that there is a teleporter in the palace, but nobody can merely utilize it for anything. Additionally, you must receive authorization from the recipient. The authorization sequence was already etched into Kelvin and his party's guild cards, which is why they could utilize it. The fact that Leo withheld this information from them surprises Kelvin. After boarding the teleporter, the group heads back to Tarth. When Kelvin returns to Tarth, he purchases a home. There is plenty space in the house for everyone. Kelvin concurs with Clothos want to remain outside in the yard. Ellie and her daughter Luca return to the house shortly after, taking over as the new house helpers. The bath is one of the reasons Kelvin purchased the house as well. He's always fantasized of taking a bath in his own home. Melfina enters just as Kelvin is about to fall asleep. She may now be called upon using one of her avatars after making some changes. When Kelvin calls her, a stunning, winged angelic woman enters the space. Melfina is presented to the other partygoers by Kelvin the next morning. Sarah tells Melfina there's no need to apologize for calling upon the hero who killed her father. Gustav was already getting out of control, therefore it was necessary to stop him. To keep the outside world from knowing about her status, Melfina conceals her wings. In addition, Melfina says she is Kelvin's wife. Kelvin has the bright notion to start referring to Melfina as Mel. This is done to prevent anyone from realizing that she is the highest deity of rebirth. Subsequently, Kelvin receives the grace of Melfina, the ultimate reincarnated being. There are two outcomes from the grace. 1. Once a month, it shields Kelvin from lethal injury. 2nd, it gives Kelvin the ability to call forth heroes. He is only able to accomplish this once though. Kelvin might be seen thinking back on the heroes in the next scene. He questions whether they arrived safely on the Western continent. He also saw that the heroes' recollections of previous life made it difficult for them to adjust. He questions whether the Demon King can only be vanquished by the hero. Is it not possible for someone to be a S-rank adventurer like the Beast King of Gon? On the Eastern continent, he is reputed to be the strongest. Later on in the day, Melfina discovers Kelvin where he is thinking about his concerns. Melfina questions Kelvin about something as she knows he's got a problem. Melfina is asked by Kelvin why heroes are necessary to vanquish the Demon King. Even though Melfina is unsure of the identity of the next Demon King, she notes that they have all had a common experience. They possess a power that amplifies their inner darkness. Second, they become invisible thanks to this power. They are impervious to harm. Startled, Kelvin becomes even more inquisitive. He is curious as to how the Demon Kings are vanquished. Melfina clarifies that although the Demon Kings are impervious to attacks from those inside this world, they are susceptible to attacks from those who inhabit other realms. Here's where the heroes get involved. Kelvin understands that the Demon King will undoubtedly be defeated by his strikes. There are two methods to introduce individuals to the fantasy realm, Melfina continues. As with Toya and his buddies, You can either transport them straight out of their realm. A deceased soul might also be reincarnated in the realm of imagination. The finest kind of reincarnation is one in which the individual is able to select the talents that they desire. This will strengthen them in a manner similar to Kelvin's instance. Kelvin makes the decision to call out a hero that he would personally train that evening. He consumes a potion that restores his MP, and Melfina walks him through the process. When Kelvin starts the summoning, a large circle forms on the ground. A little girl appears and identifies herself as Ryo Seiki a little while later. She appears happy at being resurrected, but before anything else can be spoken, she passes out. Because his MP is worn out, Kelvin also passes out. Ryo wakes up shortly after, and you can tell how happy she is. She informs Kelvin that during her previous existence, she was confined to bed. She was unable to move as freely as everyone else, but now she is able to. Ryo opted to save her memories, therefore she is able to recall all of these. Ryo expresses her gratitude to Kelvin for calling her and allowing her to experience walking about. Kelvin says that since he doesn't like her existing name, they should alter it. Kelvin agrees when Ryo recommends that she adopt the name Ryan. Ryan is also instructed by Kelvin to inform others that she is his younger sister from a far-off place. Ryan accepts this and even gives her new big brother a sweet nickname. Next, Kelvin brings the entire family to train in the dark purple forest. Luca and Ellie are also traveling with him. He desires a rise in their status as well. You need not worry about anything because golems are already protecting the mission. Kelvin will assign points to Luca and Ellie based on his experience-sharing ability. He wishes to get them ready in case something untoward occurs. Additionally, the females will be capable of self-defense. Luca and Ellie will receive more experience points the more monsters the party takes out. Sarah, Gerard, and Clotho are instructed by Kelvin to go into the forest and take out as many creatures as they can. Gerard and Sarah soon make it into a contest to see who can kill the most monsters. A shadow wolf materializes a little while later, and Kelvin vanquishes it before making a deal with it. The wolf is subsequently given to Ryan to keep as a pet. Erd and his group soon follow to the wilderness to begin their own training. Erd is waiting for his entrance exam in the forest in order to advance to B rank. Erd tells Kelvin how lucky he is to have such gorgeous females at his party. The jealous party guests of Erd's get even more envious upon discovering that Kelvin has an adorable young sister. After saying hello to Kelvin and his party, Erd and his group depart. Sarah, Clotho, and Gerard return shortly after. It turns out that Erd would have nothing left to fight, as the three of them have already vanquished every creature in the jungle. After locating Erd, Kelvin apologizes to him. Erd, however, assures him that all is okay. Erd claims that his party has grown significantly, and that Kelvin now even merits a yes classification. Ryan gives her pet a wash when she gets home and names the wolf Alex. It's shown that Ryan understands Alex as well. It seems like she is capable of doing it. Ryan then starts working with Gerard and Sarah on her training. She undergoes rigorous training exercises to hone her abilities. One evening, Kelvin discovers that the estate is surrounded by outlaws. Upon looking at their status, Kelvin finds that they are all at the lowest levels. Rian is tasked with leading the bandits to victory, but she needs to leave their leader in her care. Rian receives her new sword from Kelvin. Rian jumps on it and proceeds to take out each bandit in turn. Once she has eliminated the bandits, Kelvin locates and confronts their boss. As it happens, the Trion nation was the one that dispatched the robbers. Kelvin intends to tend to the injured bandits and deliver them to the guild. In another scene, Zen Trion, the Emperor of Trion, summons his generals to a round table. After Kristoff was taken, the gang came to the conclusion that their country could be in danger. Tristan, one of the generals, proposes that they start a war with the other three nations in order to seize control of the continent. He claims that while the other nations are still bound by the terms of the Treaty of Peace, they have been bolstering their armed forces. The Emperor gives his generals the final say on the matter. There are 2 generals in favor of the motion and 2 against. They must confer with Clive, the 5th general, as the vote is now deadlocked. It's obvious that Clive will vote in favor of the war given the way he is. As the head of the Magic Knights, General Clive has never shied away from a battle. Actually, he likes to cause trouble. Leo tells Kelvin that Trion has begun to move after turning up the assassins to the guild. While it's not a big deal right now, they should exercise caution. The nation of Gon, which borders Trion, has migration reports. The Beast King, Leon Gon, has asked Kelvin over, Leo continues. Kelvin will be put to the test by Leon to determine his suitability as a S-rank adventurer. A few while later, Kelvin and his group depart for Gon. As they get closer to a town closed that falls within Gon's purview, Efil reports feeling uneasy. Since Efil is half-elf, Melfina informs her that the hamlet they are nearing is elven, meaning that she would undoubtedly experience tingling. It is revealed that although elves originated in the West, a small number of them relocated to the East a few years ago. Sarah notes along the way that in order to earn the S rank, you must have the endorsement of 2 rulers or more. Although Tsubaki has already given her permission, Leon wishes to give Kelvin a test run before approving him. They are abruptly halted by several elves who are watching over the settlement. They are not their adversaries, as Kelvin confirms when he displays the seal that Leon gave them. Nelruz, the village head, arrives to greet Kelvin. He is shocked to meet Ethel since it seems like he has encountered someone he knows. Lumos is the second name he uses for Ethel. As he leads them into the hamlet, Nelruz admits that he thought Ethel was someone else. Kelvin then requests that Nelruz inform them of Lumil. According to Kelvin, it could provide some insight on Ethel's origins. Since she was taken into slavery as a young child, Ethel has never even met her relatives. Nelruz claims that they used to reside in a forest on the continent of West. A dragon king of fire attacked them. If they don't want the dragon king to destroy the village, they must produce the elf who, according to the dragon king, made fun of him. The elves are shocked by this since they don't even know the elf who made fun of the dragon. Half of the village had already perished as a result of the dragon king's wrath. That was when one of their elves, Lumil, offered to give herself to the dragon king. The dragon king elected to take Lumil as his wife instead. Years later, Lumil's body was found in the forest. Out of concern that the dragon king would attack again, the elves packed their belongings and evacuated the land and settled on the eastern land. They have been under the protection of Gon since then. The group puts out the theory that there is a possibility that Lumil is Ethel's mother. This might be the reason Nelruz mistook her for Lumil. Nelruz then tells Kelvin that monsters from Trion have started attacking the village. Kelvin promises that he won't allow the monsters to lay a finger on them. Kelvin and his party decide to lay a trap for Trion's army and their controlled monsters. Later that night, Trion's army is seen advancing to the village. Suddenly, they are attacked by Kelvin and his party. The party eliminates all the battalions that were advancing to the village. Rion, Melfina, and Alex make their way to the camp. The commander is happy when he sees 2 girls that looked weak coming toward the camp. The commander blows a magical flute that summons a gigantic monster. Melfina tells Rion that it is time for her to step up. She needs to show that all the time in her training has not been wasted. Melfina assures Rion that she is stronger than she thinks. Because of these words of motivation, Rion summons the courage and goes after the gigantic monster. Accompanied by Alex, Rion launches an attack, but the monster repels it and breaks her sword. Rion gets angry and summons 2 more powerful swords that Kelvin had made for her. She casts a spell that seems to have eliminated the monster. Just then, the monster evolves into a fiery monster. Rion isn't even scared, and she easily defeats the monster with the same spell from before. The commander sees this and falls to his knees. He cannot believe that a little girl just wiped out the entire army and their backup monster. Suddenly, General Clive arrives and launches a surprise attack on Kelvin. but he easily displaces the spell. Clive tries to use a slavery spell on Ethel, but Kelvin blocks it. He tells Clive that he will not lay one finger on his woman or any of his party members. Kelvin uses his appraisal eye on Clive and figures out that he was also reincarnated. Kelvin tells Ethel to join the rest of the party inside the village walls while he battles Clive. Kelvin forms 5 strong spears to attack Clive, but he uses a barrier to block the attack. Clive says the spears would have been destroyed once they touched the barrier. This points out that the spears are very strong also. As the fight enrages, Kelvin is wearing a smile because he is enjoying the battle. Clive charms his whole party to attack Kelvin. Kelvin tasks his golems to take care of Clive's party while he battles Clive himself. However, he instructs the golems not to harm Clive's party members because they are under his charm. Kelvin plans to break the charm after the battle is over. Kelvin and Clive continue to go head-to-head with their spells. Kelvin attacks Clive with a spell that leaves a cut on his face. Clive gets angry and uses his most powerful spell, but Kelvin brings out his latest weapon, the Backstaff Disaster, which is rated S rank. Kelvin then activates a powerful spell too. The duo goes against each other, but Kelvin slices through Clive's spell and cuts off his legs. Kelvin is about to finish him off when Tristan arrives and takes custody of Clive. Tristan agrees that Kelvin has won the battle, but they won't allow him to finish off Clive. Tristan disappears before Kelvin decides to attack them. Kelvin returns to the village and regroups with his party. Nelrose tells his people to prepare a banquet in celebration of Kelvin's win. Now in Trison's country, Clive has been healed, and his legs are back to normal. However, Clive is now restrained inside a test facility. Tristan informs him that several experiments will be carried out on him because he is reincarnated. Clive serves as the perfect test subject that they need. This might be in preparation for their battle against Kelvin. Up next, the village chief gives Ethel a headband that belonged to Lumil. All the villagers also treat her very well, even though she is a half-elf. Just then, a little girl shows up and introduces herself as Leon Hartkin. Leon reveals that he can take any form he wants, and has decided to show up as a little girl. Leon reveals that he watched Kelvin's battle against Clive. He is now convinced that Kelvin is worth the S rank. In 4 days, the promotion ceremony will be held. Kelvin will also have mock battles against other S rank adventurers. Upon hearing this, Kelvin couldn't hide his excitement that he will get to go against other S rank adventurers. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Until next time.